Hello everybody, my name's Kimberly and this is Off-Road Reactions. Today I thought let's stick with the canning stock route theme that we've been running, but let's see how a pro does it. This is Daryl, Beattie. This is from Network 10 originally. The video comes from Honda Motorcycles Australia. Now, some of you were fortunate enough to meet Daryl on one of the trips with Olsen's Tours and Training. Not under the best circumstances. We had to, well, we didn't have to, but we assisted with the evacuation, medical evacuation of one of the riders on one of his tours from Mount Dare Homestead. And, Daryl keeps to himself quite a bit, so we didn't make a big scene about meeting Daryl Beattie. We were more concerned about helping out with Nick. Anyway, let's see how Daryl does this. I'm sure it's going to be a good production, and I look forward to it. So let's do it, shall we? Look at that beautiful escarpment. That is absolutely amazing. So this is the Durbar Hills, and I can't tell for certain, but I think we are on the eastern side. That's a beautiful shot. That's the first time I've ever seen it shot like that. I'm hoping I have a bit of time to do some work like this with the drone where I'm permitted. That's a beautiful shot, a truly beautiful shot. Okay, so let's do a little bit of an explanation, because when you're down here on this track here, which crosses this creek a little bit further back, sort of runs beside the creek for a while, and you can actually see a vehicle down here. Actually, that looks like Daryl's truck. You can't actually get a very good glimpse of what's beyond this line of red soil here, but obviously it's Lake Disappointment, a massive big lake out there. And this water that's running down this channel to Lake Disappointment is called Savoury Creek. And you do cross it a little bit further back, as I said. Now, you can of course drive right around the edge here, but it comes with a bit more risk. And you can see this portion of the lake is a little bit wet, or appears to be at least.
Australia, there is nothing like it in the world. From our fabulous coastlines to this amazing outback. And I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time in the outback with my tour company, Daryl Beattie Adventures. But there is one trip that is that extra special to me, and that is the canning stock route. This is the last frontier, one of the most remote and isolated tracks in the world. And that's what really appeals to me. Established as a stock route in 1910, still a massive challenge today, and will test the most experienced adventurer. Join me and my mate Kevin Swans and a group of ordinary Australians on this epic journey across the canning stock route.
So, if you hadn't yet worked it out, Daryl Beattie Adventures is motorcycle tours, not four-wheel drive tours. And they can cover the terrain a lot faster than the four-wheel drives can. And you've got to look out for them. If you hear a motorcycle convoy coming towards you, you're going to need to be really careful, because they're, although they're being careful as well, they're moving pretty fast. And, I've had some pretty close encounters at the top of the dune. on one trip with one of Daryl's lead bikes, but you know, they're generally being fairly careful. They're generally sort of slightly off track where they're blind to what's ahead, and they are talking on the radio typically, so you can know that they're coming. And I'd urge you to sort of go with a bit of caution if you hear a motorcycle convoy coming towards you. Okay, so that's Daryl's kind of supply truck, if you like. I imagine he does all the, you know, all the maintenance and everything else out of that truck. I think it's an Iveco. Well, I'm going to go back there. That's where my four-wheel drive broke. So for those of you who have seen the video of my four-wheel drive driving with the broken chassis, it's somewhere in this vicinity. I can't spot the exact spot, but there's a spot off to the left here, I think. That's where we actually did the so-called repair and managed to drive the vehicle all the way back to Townsville. Took 6 days, but we got there. And the vehicle was repaired and on the Cape York trip 4 days after that. So 10 days in total.
I'm excited. On a Daryl Beattie adventure from Walloona all the way up to Halls Creek, and yeah, it's something I had to come do. You know, I miss the comforts of Austin, Texas in my king-size bed, but you know, what I have here that I can't get there is this great riding, and dirt bike riding is what I grew up doing, and I still love doing it. The scale of the Canning stock route is epic. Right in the heart of Western Australia, the track extends 1,850 kilometres from Walloona in the south to Halls Creek in the beautiful Kimberley region.
All right, so I'll just stop it here because I wanted to show you, look how remote this is. If those of you know Australia, I mean, I think there's 4 deserts along here, the Gibson, the Great Sandy, Little Sandy, and whatever. I can't think of the other one. Doesn't matter. But it's massive, and it's in, like, you couldn't have picked a more remote spot. It's absolutely inaccessible and incredibly remote. Now, these guys might be doing all the way from Walloona to Halls Creek. These days, it's typical to not do the bit through Sturt Creek Station. So most people finish up at Billaloona and join the Tanami track there.
To the north, we will cross some 800 sand dunes and 4 deserts. The Tanami, Great Sandy, Little Sandy and Gibson deserts.
Of course. How could I
A
forget
journey
the
will take 14 days to complete, and the route is wildly beautiful, with freshwater springs creating astonishing oases in literally the middle of nowhere. There are a total of 51 wells, all with their own story to tell.
Yeah, there used to be more than 51 if you extend to Halls Creek. Although from memory, I think they were just waterholes. Or, you know, yeah, waterholes on Sturt Creek. How could I forget the Tanami? I don't know. Old age? So it looks like they might be flying into Walloona.
Day 1, and it's a very early start for everyone. The group left Perth on a 6 a.m. flight to the starting point of the Canning stock route, the township of Walloona. At day's end, there's sure to be a few tired bodies amongst this group. It's great to meet everyone for the first time, and after the introductions, it's time for the first group photo before we climb on board the Hondas and head out. Day 1 is massive, some 215 kilometres at sea us leaves Walloona, heading due north for Well 6, also known as Pierce Springs. Our Iveco support truck will make use of the road access via Granite Peak Station, and we'll meet up at well 5.
Okay, so this gives you a clue to what I was talking about before. It's really difficult for us, even though this is the easy part of the Canning Stock Route trip. It is a bit difficult for us to guarantee that we could cover that distance in day one. Having said that, we have done it. I broke a spring, front left spring on a Nissan one year, round about I'm trying to remember now, maybe round about well 5, just before well 5, and I sent the convoy on to well 6, and you'll see why. And they camped up for 2 nights there under the care of someone who was a tour leader, and I went back to Wiluna, having arranged with Barney to get a new spring. So we have done that trip in that amount of time, but you can hear that Daryl says the Iveco truck goes in via the station road into well 5, which means that they can cover the ground a lot faster. The Iveco would be struggling to keep up, and I'm interested to know exactly how they manage that, because that the Iveco couldn't cover the terrain that the bikes can cover. To give you an example of that, we were on the Canning one year, and some bikes who were, shall I say, riding like lunatics really, had covered in 5 hours what we took 5 days to do. And I've seen that in the Simpson as well, where we met a guy who was doing the Simpson Desert Crossing on a motorbike in a single day. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this Iveco keeps up. Maybe it leaves early in the morning, and the bikes leave later and have a shorter day. Maybe the bikes go and explore other things. I'm not sure. We've encountered Daryl's convoy many times in the desert regions, but typically he's going the opposite way to us, so we don't get to see how this is managed.
Going to plan, we should be in just before dark.
I don't do much of a talk, boys. It's sort of enjoy yourselves and ride at your own capabilities. We are, as you all know, we're in a pretty remote area, so RFDS say Canning Stock Route minimum half day, sometimes a day for help. So it's something to always keep in mind. It's pretty long time. It's beautiful, stunning ride.
We pause with a mixture of excitement and...
Look, I actually think there are places on the Canning where you'd be struggling to get medevac in that time. You may have to be carried by a vehicle to a location where the RFDS could get to you, and that might take several days. So you've got to be, nice and cautious here, and it can't be taken lightly.
And anticipation with the distances we are yet to cover. After leaving Wiluna, we ride 28 kilometres before turning off and joining the Canning Stock Route.
Well, too. Here we are.
After another group photo, it's time to get familiar with the terrain and our bikes.
60 to go, 49 to see, 49 more to see. It's funny because you're buzzing down this trail, right side to side, so you can see far enough down to be able to commit to the speed you're doing, and then you see something, it looks like it's slow down, make the corner, and then it's just rocks and a ravine and up a ledge. It's the biggest variety of terrain I've seen maybe in a day of riding in a long time.
Out here you expect to see four drives and motorcycles, but we were all a little bit surprised to come across someone from Europe on a home-built bamboo bike.
Oh yeah, right on.
Hey, have fun, stay safe.
Yeah.
Happy travel, safe travel.
Thank you.
You too, bud.
You too.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Sorry to see.
Blows me away.
So we encountered two cyclists on home-built bikes doing the Canning, and this guy's going to have some trouble if he's going to the sand dune country. He's essentially going to be walking and pushing that bike. These guys had extremely modified, just built to their design bikes with really big fat wheels, and they were having a hard time of it. I think they were doctors, actually, both of them. And so this guy's going to have a hard time as well.
From well 5, we enter the Barilla determination, which is an Indigenous protected area where their country extends from well 5 to 15 and permits are required beyond this point. It's about, I reckon for me, there's about 5 wells on the Canning Stock route that are pretty. Some certainly probably have more history. Indigenous folk being born at wells. At this place, beautiful big gums. And you'll look at these, how beautiful the water is. We're in the desert.
So this is, I might have, thinking in one of my previous videos, I might have got this mixed up, got this wrong. This is well 6, I think in a previous video I said 16, old age. So this is well 6 and it is beautiful. Well 16 is a nice area as well, but well 6 is one of the favorites. It's really nicely shaded campsite, eucalyptus cameldulensis everywhere, great big ones. The water is good, fireplaces, lots of leaf litter on the ground, just a nice little camp.
There in the water in the city. Beautiful. As the sun sets on our first day on the Canning, we unpack the truck and make camp. We're absolutely exhausted and enjoy a fantastic steak dinner around the campfire, ready to do it all again tomorrow.
Let's just go back so that, because there you can get a good view of well 6. Look how pretty that is. I mean, it's just, this is in the middle of, really, really desert country. I mean, it's not dunes yet, but it's, the rest of it's just acacia. And so you can see just how beautiful it is. That's the well we can see just here in front of that great big tree. I'm really impressed also how, unlike lots of other tour operators, Daryl's operation doesn't spread itself out and consume the entire campsite. So well done, Dazza. That's a thing that I see lots of tour companies do, is kind of try and possess the whole campsite, which just ruins it for everybody else. There's no reason to spread out a lot.
It's a tough journey. I'd hate to have thought what they would have gone through to get to each well back in the day. It's been an amazing experience on a motorbike, but yeah, to do it on a horseback would be a tough journey.
Today's journey takes us past 6 wells and the historical site of John Forrest's fort. Then we head past Lake Aerodrome before making camp at well 12, another great camp where fresh water is available. The advantage of travelling by bike.
Yeah, so 12 is another place that we've often stopped at. It's very hard to plan this journey in the way that Daryl has done when you're driving four-wheel drive convoys. Motorbikes make it a little bit easier, although, as I said, I'm still interested to see how this Iveco manages it. So we don't actually have a day-by-day itinerary for our travel on the Canning. We kind of decide in the mid-afternoon where we're going to be that night, and we just drive to the conditions. but very occasionally we manage to make one of our camps at well 12. And it's interesting, Daryl's not really pushing real hard. I would say that in the middle of the stock route, we would typically do 3 or 4 wells a day. We could potentially do 6 wells in this area. The track's a little bit better until you get to about Lake Aerodrome. Anyway, let's see. I might skip over some bits because I want to conserve some of the history and stories for people who come along on tours with me. My company is a sponsor of this video, Olsen's Tours and Training. So if you want to go and do the canning stock route with us, with me, and with my fabulous assistant Misty, then get on over to Olsen's Tours and Training, and the link will be in the description. We're doing a canning stock route in 2023. I believe the departure date is June 26th. My brain is not working this morning. And anyway, you'll find the date on the website. 23 days, Gun Barrel Highway, canning stock route, down the Tanami to Tilmouth Well. So we start at Ulladunder, which is the turn off to the Lassiter Highway to Uluru. So go and check that out.
Is the free-flowing nature and the amount of ground we can cover very easily. This gives us plenty of time to stop at each of the wells, rest and enjoy the sights and sounds that Canning has to offer.
So that's how the Iveco is keeping up. Now he's going to go and talk about a fort here shortly, and I'm going to skip ahead of that because I don't really, as I said, want to do too much of that. So we've got the Malu Ranger here by the look of it.
Opportunity to wash away the dust from our faces with some beautiful crystal clear water. We set up camp and it's not long before we're joined by the local rangers. This is a great chance to find out the history of this area. Share stories from both our past.
So you look what we started.
Show them our motorcycles and take time to understand the key role the Aboriginal Rangers play here today.
So g'day, my name's Hamish Morgan and this is Ivan Wongwall and we're part of the Birriliburu Ranger team and we work to look after this country. It's a beautiful big country. It's 6.6 million hectares, which is almost the size of Tasmania. This is what is called a Indigenous protected area, and about 67% of Australia's natural reserves are now Indigenous protected areas. So Indigenous people are at the sort of forefront of conservation management across Australia. And one of the things we do is fire management. When his people were living on country, they were always lighting fires. That's how they looked after the country. That's how they managed the resources, looked after the food. That's how they communicated with each other with fire. That's how they kept the country safe from the big summer fires. But since people stopped living out here full time, those big fires have started again. Part of our work is trying to break up those big areas of unburnt spinifex, break it up so that when the lightning strike does come, because it's always going to come, the fires don't get too big. And hopefully as the canning stock route grows and as more tourists inevitably will come out here, it's more about that connection. That White Australia gets that opportunity to meet ranger teams and to hear the awesome work they're doing out here to look after the country.
Yeah, we've encountered the ranger teams a couple of times and they do fabulous work. And people really, really underestimate how different the country is now because of the loss of that, what we term cultural burning. That's how these people hunted, it's how they maintained the landscape, it's how they communicated with each other, and they knew this country intimately. And if you want to get a little understanding of that, I'm going to point you to a documentary You might have to pay to watch this documentary. I'm not sure if you can find it streaming anywhere. I'm just going to be certain to get the right name of it, but I'll tell you about it first. It's about people in the it's about people in the Tanami Desert, so Warlpiri people, not Madru people, who had lost a significant site in the sense that nobody had been there for a very long time, and they weren't totally certain that they could find it. Remember, people travel this land using what are called song lines, so they literally sing the map of the country as they go, and so they can connect one place to another, to another, to another. They don't navigate in the sense that we do, and there's a point in the landscape and we can go directly to that point in the landscape. We have to find these other points in the landscape to get us to the one that we're looking for, and we do that by a memorized song. It's absolutely fascinating. And these people had lost this significant location, and the reason it was significant was it was associated with rainmaking. And you may scoff at rainmaking, but I can tell you these people had such intimate knowledge of the desert country and the weather systems that they knew at a particular time of year when the birds were behaving in a certain way, that the humidity and the updrafts were significant enough that if they lit a big enough fire and a long, long line, that they would create what are now known and understood as pyrocumulus clouds. So big towering cumulus clouds caused by fire. And these clouds essentially seeded the atmosphere to create big rainfall. So this was something that was very important to these people, but they'd lost the place. And so they used people who had existing knowledge or who had been born at the place or had visited the place when they were children, and they went out and they found it. It took 40 years to find this place. And Warlpiri are now able to conduct that ceremony or that cultural practice as they used to do. It's a fascinating story. The documentary is called Napajukupa, and it's created by Steve Jamajimpa Patrick, who was associated with the Bush Mechanics series, for those of you who've seen that. Now, there's a whole bunch of documentaries that these people produced from what used to be called Warlpiri Media, but now I think is called something else. I think it takes in Papunya and others. So I can't remember the name of the production company. But this one is SBS On Demand, and you can watch it there. It's, as I said, an absolutely fascinating story, especially if you, like me, as a glider pilot, you understand pyrocumulus clouds. Napa in Warlpiri means water. In Pitjantjatjara, it's kapi, but in Warlpiri, it's napa. And Jukupa is dreaming, or the law kind of, cultural practices. So this is essentially the water song line. And as I said, they've got to kind of travel through the country to kind of understand how to connect these locations together. And the locations are, if you like, they're described relative to one another by a song line, a song. So go check it out.
And hopefully as the canning stock route grows and as more tourists inevitably will come out here, that it's more about that connection. That White Australia gets that opportunity to meet ranger teams and to hear the awesome work they're doing out here to look after the country. Not only for their people, but they're looking after it for all Australians. This is an important conservation estate for the nation. And these guys are at the forefront of managing it.
riding has been exceptional. More than I thought. I've done the Simpson quite a few times. My brother done this in his car on his own 17 years ago. I thought, yeah, I'll do it on a bike with Daryl. And he said, oh, it'll be about 5 times as hard as the Simpson, but I think it might be 8 times as hard. It's just consistent, doesn't stop.
Yeah, look, I get asked all the time, you know, what's so difficult about the Canning stock route compared to the Simpson Desert? It's not so much to do with the terrain, although the corrugations can be a little bit more severe in places. And I think I'd describe it this way: there's no difference in the terrain in the sense that you'll encounter the same kinds of terrain on the Canning stock route as you will on trips like the Simpson Desert. The difference is there's just a whole lot more of it. And as he said, it's relentless. I'm not trying to scare people about it. It's just that that's what the difference is, right? So it's just, you know, take the Simpson Desert and multiply it in distance by, you know, trying to think of how far, probably 5 times. So, you know, that's the difference, really.
Today we head for one of the most beautiful spots on the Canning, Derba Springs, where we will meet the Mark II Ranger team. The riding today sees us further into the desert and increased sand. Our distance today, 145 kilometres of pure dirt bike heaven. Riding into the sun, the air is crisp and cool, but the sand is starting to get the group's attention and keep everyone warm by working as hard on the bike. The riding is challenging and always testing the group with terrain changing quickly. From deep sand, then to the big washouts after recent rains, and back to gravel and rock.
Yeah, it's been good so far. Nice and cool, a little bit.
Sleep well?
You know, I slept pretty good till about 4 o'clock, and then because I think I woke up when I was cold. I never really got back over that, so I never got back to sleep again. But yeah, it was all right. I went to bed 9:30, something like that, so it wasn't too late of a night.
And the riding today? Pretty good?
Been fun, you know, some deep sand, some pretty big ripples in the road, lots of corrugation, so, you know, the deep sand keeps it kind of wandering around and walking around the whole time. Just remember, the more throttle you give it, the better it gets, so.
You know, some of my friends were really excellent motorcycle riders, truly excellent off-road motorcycle riders. And I had to go a few times. My dad was a very good motorcycle rider, and he therefore prevented me from owning bikes at a young age, because he just knew how much trouble I'd get into. So I never really mastered riding them. Did a lot of on-road riding, but not off-road riding. I never really got the hang of it. But I did eventually start riding mountain bikes and was a, you know, nationally ranked mountain bike rider at one stage. So I guess there are some similarities, but I kind of never mastered the off-road motorcycle. So if you want to watch the rest of this video, then please do. I'm going to go ahead to Derba here and see a little bit of what's going on.
Morning, where I get to take part in their wallaby capture and release program.
So we're here at Derba Hills with a ranger team here from Jigalong. About 3 years ago, we moved some rock wallabies from down south and we put them back here. They went extinct in this range in about the 1980s. So this has been a collaborative project between Parks and Wildlife and KJ Rangers to bring them back home, bring them back to this range. Yeah, so each morning we've already got the traps up in the rocks, and these guys are really good animal handlers and work with a Parks and Wildlife person. So we grab the rock wallabies out of the traps and put them in bags, but then we also take some measurements of their feet how much they weigh, so that we make sure that they're putting on weight. Also, just whether they're healthy, got nice coats, whether they're breeding, so we'll look in their pouch, see if they've got little ones, if they're boys, whether they're breeding or not. And then we also microchip every single one, so that next time we come, we know exactly who it is, whether they came from over there or they've been born and bred here. And then we also take DNA just to make sure that we've got a good representation of animals and we're not getting too much inbreeding. Today was a bit of a slow day, but we got 3 animals and it was a really good mix. One animal that was one of the originals that came across 3 years ago, and then we've got one that bred in that first year, and then we also got her young at foot. So 2 that have been born and bred on this range from the originals. So the guys are amazing. We put traps right up high in the cliffs. So it's a lot of work to get the traps up there. And then we check them very early in the morning. Lots of hard work on your legs. These guys come out here a lot and do lots and lots of hard work. So big trips.
This area was home to many Aborigines, and we take time to admire some very beautiful and significant rock art painted very close to the campsite.
Yeah, and you'll get to see an awful lot more of that if you come along on our trip. Let's go ahead a bit. As I said, if you want to watch this, the entire video, the link will be in the description.
Sometimes you just have to stop and enjoy the beauty of outback Australia. Today is about midpoint, the canning. So if you want to say 1,800 kilometres, let's say 2,000 with Halls Creek, a few extras we do. We generally change oils around 1,000, so today marks our halfway point. So CRF 450Xs run a separate gearbox and engine oil. So we change both, they hold about 750 ml each. New oil filter for the engine. And then tomorrow we'll be due for change of air filters as well, and we just monitor those depending on conditions. But I just find that the kit's easy for what we do. Yeah, other than that, they're pretty good. Changing sprockets, we get 4,500, 5,000 Ks. These tyres have done Simpson in here, the Michelin Deserts we find the longevity's good, and the wear rates pretty good. Well, it's mainly sand country, so but the service is a necessity to keep them going. It's tough conditions.
Yeah, look, and the same thing with your 4-wheel drives. If you're coming on, this trip, you're probably traveling a long way from home. It's really ideal if you know how to do your own oil changes and you have a way to carry and dispose of the oil. If you're doing this kind of thing, for instance, with us, we're not going to be doing an oil change out in the desert country because we're not going to carry the oil or the waste oil. But what I recommend you do is what I do. I actually do my oil change at home at a time that I know will mean that I'll be due for an oil change when I'm in a population center. So I work out my kilometers for my journey, and for instance, if I was doing the canning, I might say, well, I'll be due for a 5,000 kilometer oil change, which is when I typically do mine. So I'll do it in Alice Springs, because by the time I've done this travel and that travel, I get to Alice Springs, I'll have done 5,200 kilometers. So that's the way I do it. I always carry fuel filters, air filters, oil filters, hoses and belts and all that kind of thing for my 4-wheel drive. I'm going to roll along a little bit further. I want to see a bit more.
Right to the edge of the track. While it's not very pleasant getting whipped by these branches on a bike, it also adds another element for the truck driver scooter to worry about.
Well, in amongst all the trees and stuff we went through today, we've had a little tiny stick, which was, that's the culprit, that went bang.
Yeah, so this is a genuine issue, and it will happen to your tires as well. Little tiny sticks the size of a match will puncture your tires. Now you might be wondering what's going on here. The Iveco that Daryl Beattie uses has self-inflating, deflating tires. So from within the cabin, the driver can monitor and control tire pressures. That airline down to the center there goes into the tire. You know, it'd be ideal if it was not exposed to the elements like that, but that's the way it's done. You'll find similar things on some military vehicles. So that's what that hose is for. It's to inflate and deflate the tires.
So it was hanging out of that little bit of plastic there, which was the cover. So when we pulled up, it was like that. So this is a miniature one. We can fix this up, no worries. But it's the same somewhere else. We've got a slit in the back tyre as well. So as we pumped it up to park up for the night, the slit's let go and she's gone bang. So
that's expensive.
We'll jack her up and change the tyre and be all good tomorrow.
All good, boy.
We carry 2 spare tyres for this very reason. So as we get the spare down...
And you should carry 2 spare tyres as well. Gee, that truck is in beautiful condition, isn't it? Lovely condition. There are a lot of people who don't like the Ivecos and say, you know, I wish I'd kept my Unimog. It'd be interesting to talk to Scooter or Daryl one day and find out what their opinion of the Iveco is. But it's certainly in beautiful condition. Yeah, please carry 2 spares. Now, if you're traveling with me and Misty, you don't need to have that second spare on a rim. We will fit it to the rim out there in the bush. Yep, we both know how to do that. And we might ask you to help us because we've got, you know, not the strongest arms in the world. And it's a tough job, but we both can do it and we both know how to do it. And we've both done many of them.
Larry Perkins sets about fixing the airline issue that could potentially slow the progress of the truck.
Gee, you couldn't have any better engineering help than Larry Perkins. Well done.
If we don't get it fixed.
So we just cut that piece of hose out that had a hole in it. As it turns out, it's quite a good bit of hose with wire reinforcing and everything. So we've just been very unlucky that that stick has hit it right on the point of the barb, which has pierced the hose. So all good. We're back in the game. Thanks. A bit of help from LP, and I'll get the next one sorted in a minute.
While changing the tyre is not a big issue when you have many hands to help, we were certainly lucky the tyre held up until camp. Had Scooter and Brad done this change alone on the track, we all might have been waiting a little bit longer for dinner.
You absolutely would have been waiting a bit longer for dinner. And this is also a good time to point out that's why we don't plan our daily schedule in that manner. And those of you who've travelled with us before, you know, whether it's the Simpson Desert, Hay River or the Canning, will know that, you know, we had a couple of issues on the Canning last year, not the Canning, on the Hay last year, and we just went, you know what, let's pull up here tonight. We found a little camp spot nearby, and we fixed a particular issue with a broken fuel line on one of the cars. And this is the kind of thing that happens. So, you know, you can't plan a Canning and say, oh, we're going to be, on day 4, we're going to be at well number X. You just can't do it.
There's been no pressure. That's another thing I like about this tour. There's no pressure to do anything. Like Daryl let us set our bikes up the way we wanted them and get up in the morning. There's no real, come on boys, hurry up, we're on our way.
This is another really important point, and it's the philosophy that I've used all the time. And it's great to hear that Daryl does the same kind of thing. Maybe we have the same kind of mindset. If you want to ask me questions about your vehicle setup, I'm more than willing to give you that information. I'm probably going to tell you, number 1 is good tires. So, you know, the best conditioned tires you can have on your car. Ultimately, the best is brand new, but they're expensive. You know, so I understand you can't go and buy brand new tires every time you do a tour, but make sure they're in really good condition and not old. But when it comes to all the rest of it, you know, one of the things you'll find written in my information pack is forget about clocks. We don't use them. Except on the first day, I'll say we're going to meet at 8 a.m. to get started. The rest of the days are done to the rhythm of nature. I get up just before the sun, and you'll find you're getting up then too, or shortly afterwards. You're getting to bed early because you're tired, and it's dark, and it's cold. So, I don't tell you where to put your tent. None of that. Come on, let's go. None of that. It's your holiday. You should enjoy it. So it's great to hear this.
It's just great. No pressure. I think I'm more rested than when I started.
The riding today has us going past 5 wells, finishing at well 35. It's about 155 kilometres of dirt bike heaven.
Now I want to watch this piece because this is the bit that is where all the corrugations are typically. In the past, these have been the worst corrugations. And $3.40, $3.40 a litre, that's cheaper than I paid many, many years ago. Although that's petrol, mine would have been diesel.
We will stop at the Aboriginal community of Coonawarrigi for fuel, then back onto the canning. After the tough going yesterday, we are hoping for a slightly easier run in the sand. The group take no time in getting up to speed this morning and are getting along at a pretty good pace. The truck, on the other hand, is finding the going slow. Might have something to do with the 10th packet of biscuits. Well 31 and there's not much left. Some rusted metal and a hole in the ground. One of the things I love, it doesn't matter how hard it gets, there's always time for a good laugh.
There you go. Don't friggin' hammer it when you take off.
He said, hammer it when you take off.
Gonna get sand in his face.
We arrive at Coonawarrigi for fuel and have to wait for the truck before we can fuel up. This gives the boys a chance to buy a few sweets and the odd meat pie, fresh from the pie warmer.
And I suspect the reason that the truck is taking so long is because of the corrugations. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see them from the angle of the bikes, but those corrugations in the past have been really severe. Coonawarrigi has kind of a shed over the Bowsers now, and the Bowsers used to be out, under the tree basically, or, next to the tree. And there's a brand new store there, and there's cabins and all kinds of stuff now. The store used to be a little tiny low tin shed, and there was nothing, well, I say nothing fresh. There was one stalk of broccoli once when I went in there, and a little tiny fridge. Lots of kangaroo tails and packet and tin stuff, but there's been an active movement to bring in good food to these Aboriginal communities. Coonawarrigi is a long way from anywhere, so getting food there is a challenge. But you'll find the store has quite a decent supply, but bear in mind, although they're stocking up for travellers, it's a community store. It's for the community, predominantly, primarily. So, don't go hogging stuff, get what you need, but don't go grabbing, there's 3 bits of, broccoli left, I'll get them all.
The truck arrives and we fill both the petrol and the diesel tanks. At $3.40 per litre, this is one fuel bill that's going to hurt. But out here, there's certainly no choice.
$1,400. $1,400. Okay, I'm going to, I think, come right to the end here. Looks like he's at Breton Hills. We'll catch up with him there. This is some lovely sand dunes in the high 40s, getting up towards 45 or so, maybe. And so we'll start from here and then I'll finish up. And if you want to watch this video, as I said, the link will be in the description.
In one piece. It's another tick on the bucket list for all the riders here, and one they should all be very proud of. While we are not far from Halls Creek, this is where our journey really ends. We've all made new friends and shared experiences along the way. For me, I'm pleased to have been able to take a group of people into the outback for an experience they'll never forget. The Australian outback is such a special place, not only for us travellers that are willing to take on the challenges the outback presents, but also the people that call this home.
While he's waxing lyrically about the outback, this is the very spot where I repaired my truck. The very spot.
I'd like to say a special thank you to the Aboriginal people and communities up and down the Canning Stock route that allowed us into their backyard and also showed us how beautiful this part of the world really is. Our trip wouldn't have been possible without the support of some
All right, I'm going to let Daryl thank his sponsors and so forth, and you can go and watch all that. This was really great to see, and hoping to see Daryl and his crew. Well, I know I'll see Daryl and his crew out there next year somewhere. I'm Kimberly. This is Off-Road Reactions.